You are live. Welcome
Oh,
to the show. Dr. Mike Haarer from Indiana in the house. Great to have you here today, brother. Thanks so much for your time, man.
yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. How are you doing today over there? And where are you?
Yeah, doing good. We are in the Fort Wayne area in Indiana. It is pretty chilly here. Got some, sub freezing temperatures, but it's all right. It's all good. Having a good day.
Heck yeah, man. So you spent several years in a residential treatment center and leading that facility with teenage girls that had dealt with severe trauma. And if you could just tell me a little bit about what you did there, my friend.
Yeah. So I had worked, so I'm a mental health counselor by training. And so I've worked actually in the field of adolescent mental health or residential treatment for 20 years. And so initially I worked in with court-ordered youth in residential treatment. And then we launched in 2012 a private residential treatment center for teen girls from all over the country that were struggling with issues, like you said, severe trauma issues or problems related to attachment and other just like mood disorders. It was right after, the rise of the smartphone and social media, right in that, 2010 to 2012. And so, that was when we were starting to see within adolescent girls, particularly like increases in cutting, suicidal tendencies, and depression. And so it was kind of right at that time that we were starting to work with a lot of girls dealing with those types of things.
My gosh, man. First off, I just want to back up and say thank you for your time today, man.
Yeah,
absolutely
sure.
love you. We've met a couple times before today, and just grateful for the times that you've poured into the room with Inspire You, and just sharing some of the things that you've been through with me personally, and really like if we could just back up a little bit, and you could just kind of tell the audience, who you are, what you've been through a little bit, and what brings you here today.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you, Spencer. I really appreciate you and your heart for just supporting other people and building into others and encouraging them. You've certainly been an encouragement to me. So thanks. And thanks again for having me on. I really do appreciate it. So yeah, I grew up actually in a Christian home. My parents, my dad was a pastor. And so I always saw, my family really loving and supporting other people and just pouring into people. My parents are the most loving, generous, selfless people that I know, very humble and caring. And so I think, I grew up in that context and really saw myself wanting to love and support people. And so early on, and actually I remember very specifically, this is kind of part of my story, that in, I think, fourth grade, I, had this small group of friends, and one of them I remember said to me on the playground one day, "Man, you are always helping us like work out our fights and get along. I think you're going to be a counselor one day." And I think, like, honestly, that was one of the things that stuck with me, that I'm like, yeah, I saw my family loving and supporting people. And I think then just seeing the way that I was made up of like empathizing, caring about people, it really planted that in me that I wanted to use my life to really meet people where they're at. And then kind of going along with that, I had my own like physical and medical issues and complications growing up. I was born with severe scoliosis and some physical like rib problems, deformities, and like different things. And so for me, like, I really had to walk that journey of my own healing and support system and finding my worth, value, and confidence where it was stable in God and in connection with other people. And so that's kind of really driven a lot of what I do now, helping people overcome challenges and find ways to make meaning in their life and overcome obstacles. Yeah.
So your dad was the pastor?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's been a pastor all along. And then just recently, he kind of like passed the torch to my older brother, who's now the lead pastor at the church where we grew up. So it's super fun to see that, like, that impact being passed down through the family. And so it's super fun.
So was that you and your siblings attending the church, not just on Sundays, but all throughout the week?
Yeah, definitely one of those families. It's like there all the time. And it was a small church, so it wasn't like there were like tons and tons of programming and stuff. But yeah, whenever it was open, we were there. That was That was our family for
Okay.
sure.
And is
Yeah.
that a non-denominational church, or is that, like Jehovah Witness? What is that?
Yeah, so it's kind of mainstream evangelical. It actually has roots in the Mennonite church, if you're familiar, but like there's a lot of
Okay.
there's a broad spectrum there when you say Mennonite and what that means and looks like. So it's more of like a mainstream in look and feel. It's like a non-denominational kind of mainstream Christian church.
Okay. Did not know that there was different sects of Mennonite.
Yeah, for sure. It's a whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. And so how old were you when one of your friends told you that you should be a counselor, you should grow up and be in counseling?
Yeah, I feel like timing wise, I'm pretty sure it was around fourth grade, something like that. So whatever age you are in fourth grade, don't
Okay.
necessarily remember, but yeah. So right around those elementary years.
Okay. And when you heard that clicked with you, and you kind of felt like you were always going to be on that trajectory?
Yeah, so like I said, then that really shaped like it kind of went along with this idea of how I see myself in terms of caring about people, being kind and loving and supportive and all of that. And yet I didn't feel this sense of like, oh, I'm going to be a pastor like my dad or something like that. It really was like I kind of knew I wanted to go to college and study and get a degree. And so I kind of was exploring, okay, what does that look like? And so then, yeah, fast forward, I went to college here in Indiana, a place called Grace College, and got a counseling degree, and then knew that I wanted to really go right away. So right after Grace bachelor's degree, went on and got my master's in counseling. Yeah, just because as a counselor, you kind of, if you're going to do actual individual therapy and things like that, you got to have that master's degree. And so went right away to that. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, looking at how everybody has a story, and there's a lot of different pieces that make up like how we get where we get. So I definitely think, that friend on the playground is definitely a piece of it. And then God weaves all sorts of other different pieces along the way to kind of get us where we go in our lives. So yeah.
Amen, brother. So do you mind tapping in a little bit into the scoliosis
Yeah.
and kind of like how that affected you growing up? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, when you were a youngin, third, fourth, fifth grade, that was all you knew. So, but do your siblings did they have any were they born with anything like that, or is that genetic?
No, yeah. So nope, they all, like I was the only one growing up that was ever like in the hospital. And not only did I have like, surgery right out of right away almost after I think a couple months old, and then another surgery and I was 3 for like a spinal fusion and stuff. And then I
Oh my
also had
gosh.
like, yeah, then I also did things like break my leg, break my collarbone, got stitches on my forehead, and nobody else in my family like ever entered the hospital except to go along with me. So it's like I was kind of accident prone, as well as
Okay.
having the physical issues. So yeah, for me it was like growing up, like you said, it was just normal. It was kind of just all I ever knew. But it really was this issue of, I was always just very like small and scrawny. My back is kind of like you. If I were standing in person, like you could tell like my back is different. It's kind of a severe scoliosis. So and so anyway, that was always a part. Like, so growing up, I couldn't quite keep up. It impacted even my ability to breathe and have endurance, out there
Mm,
playing. So it wasn't like I could get out there and play football with everybody in the same way. Like I would still, my doctors always said, do whatever you're comfortable doing. And so I wanted to get out there and like play. And so I was very active, and I always still am. But at the same time, it's not like I can compete at the same level as others my age and stage or whatever. So that was always, a difficulty growing up, just having confidence in who I am, and feeling those limitations. And so I think where I see even the grace of God and all of that is that in growing up in the family that I did, they, in a sense, um, just treated me normal in the sense of like, I could do what I was comfortable doing, and they didn't like enable or take care of me in a way that like kept me from growing and challenging myself and my abilities and all of that. And then also, yeah, just the idea of really wrestling through with, there are things I can't do. There are things that I don't like about myself.
mm.
And you can either kind of go downhill with that. And like one thing that it's definitely kept me humble in the sense of like, if I hadn't grown up in a loving, supportive family and knowing God and having his support in my life, I don't know where I would be. And I don't know what all I would have walked through in terms of just, grappling with the reality of my life and situation. And so super thankful for the way that God provided my family and support along the way, and what it did in high school, especially as you enter into that stage and everybody's getting bigger and, athletes and all this stuff. And I just couldn't compete in those same ways or feel connected in that way. So that's where I really had to lean into my connection with God and say, okay, God, I'm not confident in who I am. I'm not confident in what I look like and what I can do, but I am going to be confident in who you are. And where Paul says, like, in my weakness, you are strong. I really like latched onto that and said, okay, God, I am weak. Like, I do not have what it takes to measure up or be, equal with other people at my age and stage. So God, I need you, and I will be confident in you, because in my weakness, that's where you are strong. So that really shaped not only the way that I began to grow and develop, but then also the way that I kind of treat other people and come alongside others.
My God, brother, you're quoting Paul on here. Yes.
Yeah. It's a good guy.
And just to not to like harp on that subject, but I didn't even know that you had surgery when you were that young. I mean, just a couple months old, man. But I know you said that at one point, talking about not having trouble breathing.
Yeah.
So what, like, you're at one point your lungs were being impacted to the point, and they were breaking ribs at the same time?
Well, no. So what it is like I am missing ribs on my left side, some ribs on my left side, and have less developed lung on my left side. And then at the same time, with scoliosis, there's like a twisting that occurs in your back. And so then, like, fast forward to when I was, I think, 15, my doctor said, like, hey, FYI, we've got to do a surgery. We got to put a rod in to stop that twisting, because otherwise it's going to keep putting pressure on that lung and will even further reduce your lung capacity to where you would eventually have to be on oxygen or something. So anyway, so when I was like 15 or middle school, I ended up, maybe I was 14, ended up getting that rod put in to be able to stop that twisting. So anyway, all that to say, it's a combination of both, like that less development on that left side as well as the twisting of the scoliosis.
Okay. And having all that happen to you at such a young age, man, parallels completely into pouring into others your compassion. And so were kids mean to you? Were your classmates mean to you because of that?
Not in a way that I was aware of. And so no, that's where I'm super thankful for the ways I realize I could have been really teased and picked on. And other than maybe just like a little bit of normal, picking, or it was very common for people to talk about how short I was, but again, not in like a bullying way. So I do think that's one thing I'm really thankful for. But I also, one of the things that I'm aware of now in my adult life and the ways that I kind of think about and tell my story is, I do know that early on, I think I wasn't aware of it at the time, but when you're really lacking confidence in who you are, and there's a part of you that you don't like and you're uncomfortable with, you learn to make up for that in different ways. And I think ways that I learned to kind of compensate for that was, well, I'm just going to be the nicest guy in the world. And I'm smart, so I'm going to achieve well. I'm going to be the top of the class. And so, if I'm really nice to everyone, nobody's going to pick on me. And if I'm the top of the class or really smart and excelling, then, I'll feel confident and good. And so again, those weren't necessarily conscious thoughts necessarily. But it is a way of protecting against, that fear of people rejecting or being mean. And, the great thing about that is it does develop some health in terms of relationships and kindness and all of that. But it also then, fast forwarding, can lead to a place where you're like, man, I also can't live by a fear of rejection. I can't live by, worrying that other people are going to not like me because of how I look or whatever. So on some level, I've got to be able to grow up and not be codependent. I've got to set boundaries. I've got to exercise my ability to say no and to set boundaries and be firm without fear of retaliation. So that's a work, in progress. I would definitely identify as having struggled with people pleasing and kind of that root of codependence throughout my adult life. So that's something that is, a constant area to keep working in that security.
Yeah, I don't know if those that are, I see there's a few people here with us, but anybody that is watches on the replay, did you guys catch what he said there about finding acceptance in other people's liking of you? That is good, man. I think that's something everybody deals with. I mean,
Yeah,
we're in a world where you got to say the right thing to somebody in like time. Like you meet somebody at a networking event or anywhere, and like you want to be liked, and so
yeah,
you want to constantly put pressure on yourself to be accepted by those that you're coming into contact with.
yeah,
But it's not, for me, not equating like if they like me or don't like me. That's about them. That's on them.
yeah.
Yeah. And so do you do much of that in any of your trainings that you do, or any in your teachings? Like, is that a part of some of the philosophies there?
Yeah. So interesting. Let me kind of like share a little bit about that, because the reality is, like what we were just saying, I mean, we are all hardwired to want to belong and to be accepted and to connect to other people. And so, while for me, a part of my story was, oh, I fear that people won't like me because of how I look, or that I can't do the things that they're doing. That's specific to me, but everybody has this underlying desire to belong and connect. And with that, in absence of healthy connection, can come this fear of, oh no, what if people reject me? What if people leave? And so that's where some of these unhealthy, patterns and ways of coping can emerge. But so yeah, the way that I was then trained in terms of like counseling and helping and supporting people is really right along the lines of how we develop as humans, like how God wired us. And so I'll share that like real quick, if that's okay, just what that,
Yeah, please.
how it kind of like provides the foundation for the work that I do. And that there's 4 developmental like stages or capacities that we look at. And the first one is attachment, that whole idea of, I want to belong, I want to be loved and accepted, and the ability then to meet relational needs in relational ways. If I have this capacity for attachment and connection, then I can meet my needs and I can be safe and secure and all of that. If I'm missing that sense of attachment, then I go to meet my relational needs in other ways, in things that don't necessarily really fill that void, but maybe give me a temporary sense of feeling okay. And so anyway, there's that first piece that we look at. And then the second piece is separation. So as soon as as a baby, we start to develop this sense of attachment and connection. But then soon after that, age 1 and 2 is the separation stage of, I start to really form a sense of who I am. I start to get at my own sense of identity separate from my parents, and realize,
Self. Yeah.
self. Like I have my own likes, my own dislikes. I have a child at home right now, age 2.5. And she's like totally in the stage of separation where she's like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I want this. And it's beautiful. Like people call it the terrible twos, because it's hard when a child is learning to like assert themselves and their voice and what they want and don't want. But it's a beautiful stage. They're like learning who they are and what they like and what they don't want. And that then forms their basis of being able to set healthy boundaries and really like come alongside people. This is what I'm for. This is my value. And this is what I'm against. And this is how I use my voice for that. So anyway, yeah, all that to say.
So I want to pause you there. Okay, so attachment and then separation is 2.
Yeah.
I want to pause on that, and I want to really dive in, because as I was trying to make that video to try to really like highlight who you are a lot more than just teaching leadership, I noticed like everything is family. And then I saw the pictures of you going to dad camp, which looked awesome. And then seeing the pictures of your girls and your wife and you through the years, really, in my opinion, not putting my hands on you and hugging you and breaking bread with you through the years, just recently, this newfound relationship, man, like you are all family 100%. You're and that's I'd like to if you're able to kind of like, what's that about, man? Like why is your family why are you traveling the country? I haven't even gotten into that yet, but
Yeah.
like why is it so important for you to be so present with your kids, man?
Yeah, man, great question. You know, part of the story has to be my own experience of growing up in a family, a strong nuclear family with a present mom and dad, and I had 4 older siblings, and so for me, it's kind of like there's an element of like recreating, you know, that I come from a strong family, and I know how important it is or how helpful it can be to have that present mom and dad and just that close, you know, secure base for kids. And I think again, it goes back to that is how we're wired. Like we're wired for connection. And so I have friends and I have community and I have like other people, but it starts with that like nuclear, like this is my family. And this is where, you know, my desire for love and connection starts with my wife, right? Like she's my closest relationship. And then beyond that, like we are providing a secure base of love and support for my girls. And I think that, man, being a counselor and kind of like seeing this developmental pathway, you're like, man, I know how important it is to create safety and security and love and closeness. And it's those 2 things we talked about, the attachment and the separation, like grace and love, attachment for my kids, and boundaries, security, kind of structure. So it's, you know, they both go together. But anyway, it's kind of partly how I'm wired, what I believe is helpful for kids growing up, what I want for my children. And then there's the element of like, man, even when you just started to talk about my family, I can feel myself
You lit
almost
up.
like,
You lit up.
yeah, oh, that's true. Yeah. And I almost like get emotional because I'm like, they're so important to me. I like love my girls. I love my wife and just want, they're the most important thing to me. Obviously, my
Your wife's
relationship
name?
with God and relationship with them. Yeah.
Your wife's name?
Emily.
Emily. Emily, that's
Yeah.
right. And how long have you 2 been together?
We have been, let's see, we started dating in 04, got married in
Okay.
06. So this will be 19
Ooh.
years of marriage. Yeah, this year. Yeah. Yeah. It's great. And we've had a lot of fun. Like you've, in 19 years of marriage, you go through a lot. There's a lot of ups and downs, but we were just talking recently about how one of the important things that's been a key factor for us in our marriage is communication, like really being open and staying in close communication, because we can work out anything. You know, there's challenges that come up. There's differences. We don't agree on everything. But if we can communicate through it and like draw close and hear each other, we can get through anything. And that's how we've navigated. It's not always been perfect or easy or pretty, but it's been beautiful in the long run.
Yeah, 19 years married, but over 21 together.
Together. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 little girls, 2.5.
Yeah. 2.5. And then we have a gap. We have an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. So we waited 5 years to have our first, and then we had, you know, the first 2 back to back. And then we waited a little bit. And then when we started trying again, and we're like, okay, let's have a third. We had a series of miscarriages. We had 4 miscarriages in a row. And then,
Oh man.
So that's like that age gap, 8 years between our middle and our youngest.
Sorry to hear that, brother.
Yeah.
I imagine that was pretty difficult.
Yeah, it was. And yeah, again, it goes back to that whole idea of the challenges have definitely made us stronger in terms of our relationship. But yeah, there were definitely dark times and ups and downs and kind of waiting and hoping and struggling and praying. And but yeah, in the long run, it definitely has drawn us closer to God and to each other. And in the long run, like it doesn't always work out this way for everyone, but we're really thankful then that it did end in, okay, we've got a little baby coming out of this. And that's just a beautiful picture of redemption. I see someone, Jesse has the same age gap as mine, that 8-year age gap. It's super fun. I don't know if you love it, but I do. Our older 2 girls are really helpful and just like really great with our youngest. And it's super fun to see.
Yeah, man, the greatest gift I think I have is being a dad, man. It's there is no better feeling.
Yeah.
And Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you went to Grace College.
Yeah.
Out of high school. You immediately went and got your master's there.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And then from there you worked with a clinician and was doing therapy kind of supervised. I know I used to date a therapist, and so I kind of know semi
Know
the
all about
route
the
of which
supervision.
they
Yeah.
take. Not all about it, but
Yeah.
and so what was your process there? Also got Mike D'Antoni in the house.
Got 6 boys
6
at home.
boys. Oh my gosh, brother.
I love
You
it. Yeah. I am a girl dad to the max. I am like, wow, man, what's that like having 6 boys at home? I'm sure that is a whole different experience. That's awesome. I love it.
I don't know how you keep the kitchen clean. I don't know if
Right.
that's even possible.
Go through a lot more food. I'm sure of that. Yeah, so you were saying the way it worked for me, I was working at the treatment center the whole time that I was going through the master's program, and then getting my licensure, like supervision hours. So ended up getting licensed in 2010, and then shortly after that, so then for a couple years, I was doing individual, group, and family counseling at the treatment center with court-ordered youth. And then that was when we started the treatment center. It was kind of a nonprofit under the nonprofit.
Okay. So
Yeah,
were the youth court ordered to be there?
originally the ones that I worked with for like the first, whatever that was, 8 years of working. And then the last 12 years, I worked with students that were just like privately referred
Okay.
by their parents, not through the
So
court
were
system.
there a lot of girls there that did not want to be there, that were being forced to be there and like didn't want help, didn't want treatment?
Yeah, so with like the private program, it was a mix. Like we had some girls that would beg their parents and they would come and visit and they'd be like, I need help. I want to be here, because they knew that life at home, they were depressed, they were isolated, they were struggling. And then there were other girls that, didn't want the help, but initially, their parents made the choice and admitted them. And then they come around and they're like, okay, wow, you don't know what you need until you start to get a sense of what healthy feels like. And yeah, so there's a whole mix of whether girls wanted to be there or not.
Was there a certain common trait or characteristic that that a lot of these girls had?
Well, yeah, like I mentioned, there were like some main themes. There was a lot of like, childhood trauma. There was a lot of self-harm and depression. The one thing that emerged was we worked with a lot of girls that had been adopted. It started out about a third of the girls we worked with were adopted. By the end of my time there, it was 2/3 of the girls that we worked with were adopted. And so, there's a lot that goes with that, whether depending on what the issues were, if they were kind of experienced childhood neglect and abuse prior to adoption, or if there was some different kind of genetic factors, born with drugs in their system, those all sorts of different things. We saw a lot, but that was
Okay.
one of the
So
factors.
in that process, you also you worked with or saw and probably associated with some different like adoption agencies and saw that world as well.
Yeah, not as much. Our world really was like some were still getting adoption assistance or support, but in large part, the families that we worked with, they may have adopted their child at birth or age 2 or something, and 12 years later, they're trying to figure out, when things are really going downhill and their child is cutting or whatever else, they no longer have an adoption agency in their life providing support, and so they've seen every counselor in their area, they've tried everything, and they're still at a place where they're fearing for their child's life and safety. And so then that's where they seek out a residential treatment center.
And so, heavy but serious topic.
Yeah.
So lots of firing off on a couple different things. I want to make sure
Yeah.
I'm wording it properly and not speak out of integrity. How long were some of the residents, like what was the average resident stay there that they would come and they would stay?
Yeah, so it ranged. We were a longer term treatment center. So a lot of places, are insurance driven, short term, and they're kind of like in and out in a couple of months or weeks. And so ours was longer term. So it was more like 9 to 12 months.
Okay. Wow.
And yeah. And so that really fit, you know, a lot of like, again, the girls that we worked with had been through all the short term and they'd been in and out of places. And
And
so it
was not
really
working.
was,
That treatment was
yeah,
not working.
yeah, they still needed that longer term kind of stabilization. And again, the way that the model that we then ran was like, okay, we've got this time. Let's build in that attachment piece. Let's build in that healthy separation and boundaries piece. And let's kind of work along that developmental framework to build in what these young people need.
And a lot of that is like trying to teach them how to one, identify their thoughts and their feelings, but then teach them how to love themselves and like what that even looks like. Healthy boundary setting,
Yeah.
relationship setting with others, friends and family. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. And the, you know, the thing is, it's all like the main foundation of it is attachment. That even, you know, as you talk about needing to identify my own thoughts and feelings and that type of thing, it is our basic human need, is that need to be loved, that need to have relationship. And so when we talk about being like not having attachment, that means, you know, I don't have attachments with others. Like I can't form healthy sustaining relationships with other people, but it also typically involves a lack of awareness of like what I need, what I feel, and who I am. And so that lack of that foundation of attachment just kind of leaves us feeling that emptiness, loneliness, and lack of being able to really know what we're feeling and needing. And so that's where it kind of begins, is building in that attachment of like, okay, connecting. And when we talk about like, it's one thing to say, well, I just want you to take in love or love yourself, but that is a relational thing. And so it becomes like through therapy, through support, through coaching, through whatever else, creating that relationally, that they're able to take in love and care from another person. You can't force somebody, but it is about providing some of that like education, as well as really relationally providing that, where they're able to take in, and then they can start to see themselves as lovable, know their worth, understand more of that context of unconditional love, like what Mike's putting in the chat, that being able to really experience that.
yeah. And so what I'm hearing you say there is being able to receive love from someone, even if you don't love yourself, and like knowing that this person does actually love me and it's okay for me to just be me. And I
Yeah.
don't, regardless of what I'm giving them or not giving them, like it's okay. I'm okay. So I can feel safe.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like, this is, you know, we're talking about this in the context of girls, you know, needing attachment support in a residential treatment center for teens.
Mm-hmm.
But in my work with parents and leaders, it's the same thing. Like we have adults going around, leaders, parents, who are unable to take in love and support from
Mm.
other people, who are not aware of their own relational needs. And so they're filling that with things like, you know, alcohol and porn and whatever else, that, you know, we all have these needs for love, for acceptance, for
Yeah.
belonging. And yet not everybody has been well, you know, taught or had these experiences of, oh, I'm having this need for comfort, for validation, for empathy, for containment, for acceptance. And so it's my responsibility to be aware of that need and kind of name it, and then go to someone that is safe and trustworthy to ask for that need to be met. And so then
Yeah.
that's how we, even whether I'm working with kids or with parents, leaders, whatever, it's that same thing. It's what's my need and who do I have in my life that I'm able to go to and ask for that need to be met, to build in that secure attachment, even at this stage of life.
Yeah. I can't help but think of folks that I know in addiction circles, man.
Yeah.
And you know, running towards those feelings of endorphins that you get
Yeah.
when somebody pours into you, and then like, and then almost like, if that person doesn't set healthy boundaries of knowing like, all right, this is what this relationship is. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. I want to stay okay. So attachment,
Yeah.
separation.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the third?
Okay, yeah. So the third is what we call integration, or in our treatment center, I always called it reality,
Okay.
because it is about being able to hold both good and bad, or kind of deal with, grapple with reality. So meaning there are good things about me, there are good things about you, there are good things in the world, and there's also bad things, negative things. Like I will be disappointed. I will disappoint others. The world is going to let me down. The world has, trauma, disasters, all those things. And so what we see is if we don't have this ability to hold good and bad, we either, when something bad happens, we're overwhelmed with that negative reality and we get crushed by it and we're defeated and we're stuck in despair, or we kind of like dismiss the negative reality and say, no, I'm just going to just put a happy smile on, forget that anything bad is going on. And I'm just going to stay in this like idealized view of life and the world. And it might even like be driven to perfectionism that I can't tolerate failure or negativity or disappointment. So I'm just going to achieve and succeed and perform at the highest level. And so the reality is both of those break down. Like we're either stuck in despair or we're like driven to perfectionism. We're just like smiling, but not really feeling.
So how does one break the cycle of that? And first you got to identify it, right? You got to be aware of it. But how do you break that? Because that's a pattern, right?
Yeah. So again, it's all everything. My bias or belief is everything's relational, right? And so like if I become aware of it, I can be like, okay, well, I've got to like stop performing. I've got to stop trying to be perfect. But what really is going to bring about a powerful change is a relational dynamic where, like Spencer, where we in relationship, I can bring to you my failure, my disappointment, my weakness, and you say to me, Mike, I see that. Like, I see that you screwed up and I see that you've let me down. You've let somebody else down and I'm still okay with you. I still care about you. I still love you. And so we moved from this place of my perfect self, my good self or my bad self to a place of loved self. That somebody sees me as I am. I don't have to hide. I can bring all of these parts of myself into relationship and experience love and healing. And that only happens.
That feels so safe, man. That feels so safe, bro.
Yeah. It's better than hiding.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's scary for people to get to that place. But you're right. It feels safe and connecting and healing when we take that step.
And for some people, that trajectory from here to here might be a short span. It might be a long span. And also that depends on the level of their trauma. And like, I think it would also have to do with their level of intention of like trying to really work on like, why am I like this? Why am I constantly let down? Why am I constantly upset? Why do I constantly feel like they're against me? Right.
And what am I going to do about it now? Like now that I realize that this is the case, I can just kind of like mentally realize it and try to do better, like try harder. Or what's really going to fuel change is if when I'm aware of it, I take it to relationship. Oh man, I screwed up again. I disappointed someone. I've got to call Spencer. I need to call Spencer and have him reassure me that he's still okay with me, that I'm loved, that I'm valuable, that he sees good in me. And if I do that, and if I'm like intentional to say, oh man, I screwed up again, I've got to take this. And honestly, the counterpart to that is my relationship with God, right? Like I can either run and hide from God, or I can say, God, I screwed up again. I did it again and I need forgiveness. I need to know that you still love me. And so we're constantly in that place of seeking relationship instead of running away from it. And then over time, after we do that and we've been consistent, we start to realize, you know what? I've kind of internalized Spencer. Like I know what Spencer would say to me. I know that Spencer still cares about me. And I know that even when he sees this disappointment and this hurt in me, he's still okay with me. So now I don't even have to call him because I've internalized him and his voice. And so that's that process that eventually we're not dependent. Now we're always going to have like relational needs and it's healthy to have people in our lives, but we realize that that's the process of attachment, is taking people in and carrying them with us.
And so do you call them patients or clients?
I usually say clients.
Clients. Okay. When someone gets to that level where they are now internalizing it and now it's self, now they're like fully conscious. I want to use the word conscious.
I love that.
What is there a part of you that is just like proud dad mentor? Like you know, all right, you got your pen, your certificate, man, you're good to go now. Like, how do you feel as the educator, teacher, mentor?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the part of like being a part of those feel like sacred moments. Like when you're at that place where somebody either they had like that light bulb moment of like, oh wow, you mean I'm loved and accepted even when I've screwed up, you still are okay with me. Like those are sacred moments of feeling like, wow, you're a part of somebody's healing and transformation. And so the same way, yeah, when they're able to really say, man, I feel so different now. I've taken in love, I've taken in care and support. I'm grounded in healthy attachment now. Then yeah, like that's the part that's so rewarding and so fun to be a part of.
And so to play advocate, when someone does get there, what's the likelihood of them falling off and going back to old patterns and this to keep that?
Yeah, good question. Well, the reality is hopefully that they've created patterns that are sustainable, that like it's not like, oh good, now I've got what I needed, so I don't need a relationship anymore. It really is, I've created a pattern for myself. So maybe I'm not dependent on this relationship with Mike anymore or with Spencer, but now I've created my own, like my network and my world is made up of safe people that I love and that I can go to and whatever. And so, but I think to your point, there comes a time then sometimes where people, either you face a challenge like never before, you face the loss of a loved one, you face a major, like, you lost your job or whatever it is. There are some of those things that you say, okay, like I'm not as strong and healthy as I once was. I need to maybe go back to that like therapist or coach or re-engage in some kind of development process to build me back up. And that's okay. That's not a failure. That's like a awareness of I need the extra support and development process in my life again.
Yeah. And being able to say that you need support is a strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So what's the fourth one?
Yeah. So the fourth one we call adulthood. In my treatment center, we called it competence. You like that? Adulthood.
I do like that.
Yeah. So like the first three stages, attachment, separation, integration, are all like the first few years of life, but then they're preparing you for the stage of adulthood where you own your life, where you have a voice, where you have a sense of power, and where you are mutual with other people. And so when we lack authority, we see ourselves as less than other people. And so I'm constantly looking for somebody else's like permission or approval, or I see myself as my only way to like be okay is to kind of be one up. I've got to be the one in charge. I've got to be bossing other people around. I've got to step into this parental role and be critical and harsh. And so when we have this adulthood place or capacity, then we're able to just be equal. We can, whether I'm an authority, whether I am, the parent or whatever, like I'm able to treat others as worthy, as mutual, as equal, knowing that sometimes I can still be an authority with someone and still respect their dignity and value and authority in place. And so that's the one piece with adulthood, is that sense of like mutuality and adulthood in terms of position. But then the other piece is the purpose. With adulthood, if we have this capacity, we have a sense of, oh, this is the purpose of my life, or this is the way that I make meaning in my life. I contribute to the world in a meaningful way. So like we're in separation, I identified, oh, I'm good at this. I like this. I have these passions and these talents. Then later in this adulthood phase, I'm able to apply those to make meaning and to impact the world in healthy ways. So that's adulthood. It's the two things, that equality, mutuality, and purpose.
I am still trying to make it into that one, man. 100%.
Right. And that's the thing. Like we all like it, so we actually have an assessment that we do that kind of says, oh, like here's where I'm at in all of these four. And your assessment, like for example, my lowest is the area of separation, where like I'm an adult, like I'm over 40, I'm a leader, I'm a parent, husband, all this stuff. And there are ways that I'm lower in separation compared to the other areas where I've got to continually work on being separate, having a strong voice, asserting. And part of separation is I can enter into confrontation. And if we disagree, I can be okay with you. I can confront, but still like not lose myself in that. So we're all growing in one of them or another. That's for sure.
Okay. So, just because it's resonated with me, and just a few moments ago, when in adulthood, the yin and the yang is in the word in adulthood, and like the word fluid was sticking
Okay.
to me, it was just sticking
Okay.
out, like
Yeah.
being fluid with people, but also like firm in my boundaries of what's okay and what's not okay.
Yeah.
That's just it resonated
Yeah.
with me. I
Yeah.
want to share that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, and so is all this leadership stuff? This is all
Well,
leadership stuff?
well, what's awesome is, okay, so here's the way that we frame it as a leadership concept. It's a competence plus character model. So
Competence plus character
competence plus
model.
character. So
Okay.
competence is the field. Like you went to college, or you learned a trade, or you got on the job training. You're good. You're an expert in your field. You have this skill. That's the competence piece. The character piece, then, to really be an effective leader, is all of these other pieces. These four capacities. Can I connect, meet my relational needs so that I'm strong and healthy, and also see the people on my team as people, and connect with them and care about them and help create a culture where there's psychological safety, that type of thing. And then
Good
again, going
word.
to
I
the,
like that.
yeah,
Psychological
yeah,
safety. I've
yeah,
never heard that.
there's a whole talk there, and there's you can look up stuff by Simon Sinek on that. I like his stuff. Or there's a book called The Fearless Organization by Amy C. Edmondson. That's a great resource on psychological safety. Really good stuff. But yeah,
Okay.
it's but anyway, yeah. So all of this is about, like, how do I focus on the health of the leader? They've got the competence part, like that's why they're in the field, that's why they're in their position. But that doesn't mean that they're filled up in all of these other ways. And so that's where we come alongside and really support the health of the leader. Imagine, put it this way, like if somebody's really low in this boundaries or separation piece, are they providing appropriate structure for their team? Are they confronting their team? Are they giving necessary feedback? Are they having difficult conversations? Do their team members feel safe that they know what the expectations are, and that if they step out of line, the leader
That
is
they're going
going
to be
to
okay.
follow structure? Yeah. So anyway, that's where you can see the breakdown if somebody's missing in these areas. And so that's where the leadership work comes in.
So really any team would benefit from this, any organization, entity at any level, but who are majority of the people that you work with? Like, I guess
Yeah.
who's your ideal client?
Yeah. Good question. It's a range, because the reality, here's what's interesting. Parenting is leadership, right? Like if I'm a parent, I'm leading my kids. And
Yes,
if
sir.
everything that I just said about, will I have hard conversations? Will I confront? Will I address? Will I set boundaries? That applies to leading an organization. It also applies to leading a 4-year-old in your home, or a teenager, right? And so parenting is leadership. A lot of the people that I work with, it's kind of that dual role of, I'm a parent at home, and then in the workplace, I lead my team, and I need the support in both of those arenas. So it's anybody from like small business owner that, like runs a business, and they're really great at what they do. But there are these pieces that come up and make it hard to lead a team. Or it's the CEO of an organization. It's the leader of a church, the leader of any kind of team. So yeah, it's a real broad range, but it's basically anybody that says, you know what, I see myself as a leader, or I'm in a leadership role, and I need that support to give me the strength that I need so that I can lead from a place of health. Leaders, one thing that I'm seeing right now is leaders feel isolated. Like, who can you be really honest with? For example,
Hmm.
like if you're the leader of a church, who are you confiding in and letting them know what your weaknesses are, and what your problems are, and what your stresses are? If you're the CEO of a
Because you
company
got
or
to be the strong
nonprofit,
one. You got to be the one to always have your stuff together.
you're expected to care for everybody else and put their needs first. Who are you confiding in?
Okay. So, what is your I probably already asked you this question, but what is your approach for helping people?
Yeah. So yeah. And really, like, that's exactly what this is. It's that competence plus character. And it's
Okay.
saying, let's look at where we're at. You'll resonate with one, even as I'm talking right now. And exactly what you did. You said, man, when you described that adulthood piece, that's the part where I'm really still trying to come into my own. Everybody in a sense resonates with one or more of these, and we start to really look at what is getting in the way of you reaching your goals and of you being healthy in your life, and let's come alongside and build those pieces up. And so we have a lot of different, like I have a group that I run that's like a high level, it's called Townsend Leadership Program, and it's kind of like a mastermind style. If you think about where it's these people coming together that are leaders and they're supporting each other, but more than just like a brain trust of like, let's problem solve things. It's let's really dig into this personal development aspect of let's be real. Let's open up. Let's share together. Let's learn leadership principles. But let's ultimately get healthier from the inside out as we share openly and connect with each other and give each other truth. There's the grace and the truth that I'm for you, and I'll also give you the feedback that you need.
That sounds like a dad right there. This sounds, it sounds a lot more like mental health, like 101, in my opinion, of how to set boundaries and healthy living and healthy internal reflection. And so, like, is leadership great, healthy, emotional stability?
That's a great correlation and connection. And here's the thing, the principles that I'm talking about. So Dr. John Townsend, if anybody's familiar with the Boundaries books, he's written a whole series, boundaries with teen, boundaries in dating, boundaries in marriage. His co-author is Henry Cloud. They are psychologists, and they built this like model around, healthy living and counseling, psychology, all of that stuff. And then they began to branch out and apply this in leadership and in organizational leadership and coaching. And so the organization, or sorry, the university where I teach at is the Townsend Institute, and they have those 3 tracks. I teach in the graduate counseling track, but there's
is that in Indiana?
It's Southern California. So I teach all online, except like we do a residency once a year in person, but it's Irvine, California. And there's those 3 tracks, counseling, organizational leadership, and executive coaching. But they're all centered around this model of human development that applies in each of those different areas.
And so, to go back to parenting, what do you think some of the biggest issues right now parents are facing when it comes to raising their children?
So one of the things that I see a lot is parents either resonate. I used the language a second ago, grace and truth, or it's like the kind of that attachment, like I'm for you, I care about you, or the separation of like, I have strong boundaries and here's the truth and here's the limits. Families a lot of times will resonate with one or the other. And maybe it's even like, mom is all grace and dad's all truth, or vice versa. Dad's like lenient and mom is, has strong rules and boundaries. And so parents struggle with that like cohesive, unified front around that. And so maybe they set a boundary, but they don't hold it. So kids learn there's not really any follow through. There's not any consistency. It doesn't really matter what I do. Or if both lean the same way, if your home is kind of this like rigid control, then kids are like, where's the love? Like, I'll get my love elsewhere. I'll go find a supportive community outside of the family that will love me as I am, because I'm not getting that at home. Or the family is all grace, and then it's like all permission and there's no boundaries, and kids actually need that boundary. They need the structure to know that they're safe, that mom and dad will address them and call them out, that they're not just turning a blind eye and calling it love and grace. They actually care enough to set boundaries and follow through. So I think that's what I'm seeing is parents navigating that. How to, in a world where we're all busy, where parents are working full time, where we've got our phones in our hand and we're distracted, how do I stay attuned and connected to my child and also provide structure and boundaries that they need and be consistent with it?
So how does one do that? Like right now, I'm a single dad. I just have one. Well, I have 2, but I have one full time. And so like a single parent that's working 2 jobs, how does one even implement that?
Well, it's tough. And yet part of it is understanding the framework, right? Of saying like, okay, if I'm Spencer and I'm at home, I've got this one, I'm working and I've got this child at home. Well, if I understand and like see and experience life as I'm going to be there and attuned to my child and set healthy boundaries. Like that's my goal. My child needs an environment where there's grace, there's love, and there's truth. There's the boundaries. And so in everything that I do, my desire is to infuse both grace and truth. So when my child is upset, I'm going to attune to that rather than just like dismiss it because I'm busy, like, just tell
Go
them
cry
something.
somewhere else.
Right. Instead, I'm going to go, oh, no, wait, grace and truth. Like I've got to attune to my child and name it. Like, okay, you're feeling sad, you're feeling hurt, like whatever that is, and you're really attuning. And then there's also the truth side of like, all right, now how can I help? Like, let's kind of put the structure around this. Like, what did they need to learn? What was the truth they need to hear from you? And so you start to approach things that way. But then the other piece of it is there's a part where then Spencer, like, oh man, what can I do? Like I'm at the end of my rope. I don't have time to be consistent. I'm not feeling filled up. How can I be patient with my kid when
Sure.
I'm at the end of my rope? And so then that's where you say, I have got to get myself healthy. I've got to make sure that when I'm like questioning myself and the boundaries that I'm setting, who am I calling to say, hey, here's where I'm at with my kid. Like, am I off base? Am I doing what I should be doing? And then you've got to have people in your life that will give you that truth and say, man, Spencer, honestly, I think you're being a little harsh there. I think maybe try this, try that. But you can hear that feedback and also the grace of like, man, you're doing great, Spencer. You might just need the encouragement of like, you are what it takes. You have what it takes. You are a great dad. You are loving your kid. And
just having that, like, even if you are a wreck and you go to someone that you like, their opinion does matter. And because if some stranger says it to you, oh great,
right.
Well, you don't really even know. But just hearing that, you know, it's kind of like when this is all said and done and we hear you were a good and faithful servant. That acknowledgement. To go back about 3 minutes ago, spare the rod, spoil the child. You know, that doesn't necessarily mean spank the crap out of them, right?
Yeah, right. No, in fact, I think the rod was used to guide, like to lead the sheep, to guide, not to provide, physical punishment.
Discipline.
But it's to say, if you don't provide guidance, if you don't provide structure and boundaries, then your child learns that the rules don't apply and that they can kind of do whatever, and there's permission for whatever.
Chaos and anarchy, man.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. This is great. This has been so great.
Awesome. It's been fun.
Yeah. I don't know where you are at with your time. It's been 1 hour.
Yeah. Holy cow. Time flies.
Yeah. I don't know why I was so nervous. I guess because I care about you and I want to make sure that I'm doing you some truth and grace too.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, this was great. Thanks. And I don't know, you had talked about seeing if anybody has questions or anything. I don't know if people are still on and if you still want to do that, but I don't have a hard stop, so I'm good with whatever. If you want to keep going, or if you feel like we're ready to shut it down, that's fine too.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put this on here.
Okay.
Hey. Maybe I should have put that on there earlier, but
oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, we'll see if anybody wants to do like an old-fashioned call-in show. I love it.
Yes. Jerry. Did you watch any of those crazy shows growing up?
Maybe a little bit. That's definitely some. Probably too much.
Okay. Thank you to Miss Emily also for letting you get away and spend this time with me. Thank you. And I don't know if she's going to watch this or not, but make sure you tell her that I said thank you.
I will. I'll definitely pass that along. Yeah, she's taking care of our little one that was not feeling so well overnight. So she's been like holding her and rocking her during the day today. So hopefully she'll be feeling better
Ooh.
soon.
Ooh, she got a little bug or something?
Yeah, I think so. A little
Okay.
something. Yeah.
You
Sure.
said that last weekend, or was it last weekend that you went to a seminar?
Yeah, so I was actually in a retreat Sunday through Thursday, and it was something called a journey retreat that was all about like kind of sharing your story, and it was made up of process groups, kind of like what I was talking about that we use in our leadership training as well. So it's like yeah, creating these small groups where you're sharing your story and finding connection, and then there was teaching that went along with it. But the main takeaway for me is just that idea of um, often people aren't creating these really intentional spaces where you can be vulnerable and be open and have people really like lean in and connect. And so it feels really different like when you're in this intentional space of creating those moments. But what I always find is people need it. Like people um just it's so soothing and healing when you can be open and other people lean in without judgment and create safety. It's like everybody's looking for places where they can be seen, known, and loved.
Yeah.
And
It
and
sounds like
it's
a sacred space to me.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So also, have you ever been on a men's retreat?
Well, like you said, I do the dad camp. I've done some men's retreats through like college and church stuff. I haven't done one
Okay,
super
just men,
recently.
solely men, no children.
Yeah, yeah, I have done it. It's been a
Okay,
while. It would have been early on in marriage and back in college and stuff like that. It's been a while.
okay,
I have not led one, if that's what you're asking.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, Man, so I'm active in recovery. I went to a meeting last night, one that I had never been to. I got asked to come and just attend for a good friend of mine that celebrated 2 years sober, and
Nice.
her husband and her parents were there. It was a beautiful meeting, great meeting. And there's something about like walking into a room and seeing the 12 steps and the 12 traditions, and like seeing the people, and like other than her and her family, I didn't
Yeah.
know anybody else there, but it's like a sense of like safety. I
Yeah.
can, and I didn't share. I usually share, but that I can come and be a wreck and let out my insecurities, and like these people are just like me. They're
Yeah.
just in here. They're
Right.
trying to do their very best today, and whether they stayed sober today or not, but yeah, it's a
Yeah.
great feeling, man.
It is. And that's why like 12 step and celebrate recovery and programs like that have been around for so long, and people go to them because there's that sense of I can be real in here and people aren't judging. They're gonna support me and provide encouragement and accept me as I am. That's what people need.
Yeah. So you're familiar with Celebrate Recovery?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you know about that? How do you know about that?
Well, it came out of Saddleback, the huge church out in California, and so I've just kind of known all about it. Haven't like, I haven't trying to think if I haven't really participated. I haven't led a group. I've just kind of always known about it as a part of people's journey from especially like church groups and stuff like that. Looking at the
Okay.
hurts, habits, and hangups.
Okay. Um, yeah, I have two good friends that they're both super big advocates of Celebrate Recovery
Yeah,
because it is Christ centered,
yeah,
whereas AA is all about the God of my
higher power. Yeah,
understanding.
yeah,
And so depending on what room you go into, that if you bring up Jesus Christ, they might say, hey, it's
yeah,
it's let's respect everybody's God,
yeah,
which is so interesting.
yeah.
But you don't ever want to offend anybody.
Right.
Yeah. So you have something coming up tomorrow or this weekend?
Oh, let's see. Well, I think I was telling you like this week I am leading process groups for Concordia for the Townsend Institute where I teach. So incoming like new masters of counseling students, part of your training as a counselor is
Hmm.
going to process groups where you're like learning what does it look like to be in a counseling group and working out your own relational issues and all of that. So I'm leading groups. So last night and tomorrow We have like these 6-hour, like it's made up of several different groups. So
And
yeah,
you're gonna be leading these groups of students that just graduated with their masters.
no, they're just starting.
They're
These are
just
like
starting
the
their
brand
masters.
new
Okay.
ones. Yeah, they're just coming in, and so this is their very first experience with coming into the Townsend Institute, and so it's really fun because I love to be that first like initial experience and start them off because you may not know like what are you really getting yourself into, but
Yeah.
then as a facilitator we get to create this space where they can bring that in, be real, like show up and find that, oh wow, these people are just like me, and they're nervous and they're scared and they're questioning if they have what it takes and all of those things. They're bringing all of their own background,
And so the
so
best way to get them to be comfortable and be relational is for you to be genuine and be you because you're such a sweet guy. Do you get vulnerable real quick? I mean, like, what's your process there with that?
yeah. So what's interesting is like as a counselor, when we're like leading a group like that, we're more like in it in a real, and again with them, I'm not necessarily a counselor as much as I'm like a facilitator, but
Okay.
typically we will be somewhat boundaried where I'm leading and I'm more focused on them though, because it could be really easy to make it about myself.
Hmm.
But I really want to keep the emphasis on the students and the counselors in training. So I'm not necessarily getting vulnerable. I may attune and connect and say like, wow, when you said that, I could feel the sadness. So I'm really more attuning to what's going on in them, but I'm
Hmm.
not like making it like this one time when I was a little, I had this one thing. I'm more like I'm attuning to their experience. And then I'm also creating the relational context of like, oh, Mary, what was it like for you? And Bill said, and just really helping them to create that like attuning and resonance among themselves as participants.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of therapy, brother. I'm a huge fan. I think everybody should be in therapy.
Awesome.
And the ones that are like, I would never go to an effing therapist, they're the ones that need it the most, really. Uh,
Yeah.
it's so important. And then that relationship of anonymity and privacy,
Yeah.
and like holding that line where nothing, I believe it's what, as long as you're not gonna cause harm to
Right.
yourself or you're gonna cause harm to anyone else,
Or if
right?
I've yeah, or if you disclose like abuse of a child, elderly person, or otherwise dependent adult, like, but yeah, essentially those like risk of harm to others or yourself or abuse. Yeah, and so that's the thing. That's what I was going to say. Like in terms of like creating safety for people, it again goes back to the grace and truth because it's guess what? Here in this room, we're going to accept each other. We're going to attune. We're going to focus on not like giving advice and trying to fix people. We're going to focus on the connecting and hearing each other. And then there's the safety or the boundary part of, and we're going to respect confidentiality. We're going to, I will manage some of the boundaries of like, you can trust me if somebody's, going off the rails or saying stuff or that's hurtful, I will provide some correction in the moment. And so there's both that grace and truth. You can trust that there's authenticity and there's structure.
Yeah. And so over the past hour, we've covered a lot, brother.
Yeah.
I think like 30 years ago, like the generation before me. I know you're a little bit older than me, but I would say we're semi close in
Yeah.
age. So like the generation before us,
Yeah.
for a man, a dad, to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong.
Right.
Um, that was difficult, I think.
Yeah.
Just from my father and my stepdad and my grandfathers, like
Yeah.
and guys, men I know, and so you talking about grace and truth and being soft, firm, but also soft and
Yeah.
intimate with your children. Um, there's like a that's alpha to me, but that's like almost like a feminine energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And where I'm going with this question is, I guess it's two parts. So the first part is the guy that doesn't think he needs therapy,
Yeah.
doesn't think he needs to talk to anybody. Okay. And then also doesn't have a safe space to
Yeah.
be like, how do you get that guy
Yeah.
to come to a place where he doesn't have to be firm and have it all figured out and have nobody like that individual, because
Yeah.
that's the guy that I know a lot of those.
Yeah.
I know a lot
Well,
of those dudes.
yeah. I mean, in the words of Dr. Phil, how's that working out for you? Um, right. So like really creating that sense of like, hey, if this is working for you, great. Like, what I would ask is there anything in your life right now that you feel like isn't working out for you? Is there anything that you feel
Mm,
like you need to do differently or change? Are you getting messages from your wife, girlfriend, kids, coworkers, direct reports? Are people bringing things to you that are like, hey, I'm not feeling seen and heard. Hey, I'm not feeling like you're caring for me. I don't feel supported by you or whatever. Like, are there these issues that people are bringing to you? And what do you want to do about that? Because I agree with you, Spencer, that there are people that say, like, I worked with a dad once who he was comparing himself to his own dad. And he was like, when my dad said, get in line, do this, do that, we just did it. Like there was no question. We just respected his authority. And so now, like, why isn't that working with my kids? Like when I say this, I'm like, if I, try to do this differently, I feel like I'm letting my dad down because I'm not being like him. I'm not being
mm,
effective. But the reality is, how is that working out for you? Like what worked then for you growing up doesn't seem to be working for you and your daughter right now. What does she need from you that's different from that? And so really starting to just kind of create a real, what's the pain point? Like, what's the problem with what you're doing right now? And let's figure that out. Cause it doesn't make you less of a man. Like the fact that your kids need something different from what you experienced growing up doesn't mean that you're less of a man. And I think of like what you said, the alpha or the feminine versus masculine and all of that. Like God is both to us.
yes.
He is
Okay, so
completely both.
what do you
Yeah.
think what do you think makes a man then?
Yeah, I mean, it's your identity. It's who you are. Like you're not like biologically changing who and what you are, but you can express love and you can express care and boundaries and firmness. And I think here's the thing, like in large part, there are some like stereotypically, men may lean more toward that like firm safety, protection, provision, like all of those things. Yeah, lean into that. That's your strength. Like provide those things. You may have to work a little bit harder to lean into the parts that are, the grace and the caring and the kindness. But man, I'll tell you what, when a dad gives words of, I love you, I'm here for you, I'll support you, you're the best, you're my world, like whatever, those words mean so much coming from a dad.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is that dad leaning into that softer place and saying, not only am I going to protect you and provide for you, I'm going to provide for your emotional needs and support as well.
Mm. Hmm. You know, I don't have the statistics right in front of me, but it's a topic that keeps coming up for me in the conversations that I'm having is mothers are super important. They're very important. And there's so many great moms out there that are doing both jobs of mom and dad. Um, but and I think maybe we talked about this on our call the other day. I'm not sure, but um, when the father is not present in the household, um, the statistics show that the child, whether it's a young boy or a young girl, they are like 3 times as likely to go into depressive states, suicidal behavior. I believe they are 3 or 4 times as likely to end up incarcerated. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a lot of stats on that either, but you mentioned the dad camp, that nonprofit ministry, like where you saw in my pictures that I've been a
yeah,
part of. And their mission, they have this audacious mission to make every home in the world like have a present and engaged father in every home. And so like that's their goal, is like creating these events and these like experiences to engage dads
Okay.
because of how powerful the presence of a loving, caring dad is in the life of a child. And so I'd recommend to anybody, there are dad camps throughout the country, and
Where are they based out of?
they're based out of Kokomo, Indiana, but they have
Kokomo,
them.
Indiana.
Yeah, but they have them in other states. They have them in other countries. They do like mission work, and it's been super impactful in my own life and daughter's lives. But
Okay.
whether it's Dad Camp or another organization, I do believe, like what you said, empowering and really speaking into and building up the life of a dad has huge impact in kids' lives.
Yeah. I'm not too sure. Have you met Chris Anderson yet on any of the Inspire You calls?
I don't think so. Maybe, I'm not sure. I don't remember everybody's names that I've met, but
Okay. He owns Elevate Media out of
oh,
Indiana,
okay.
and
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure he's in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
That is
I
where
don't
I'm
know.
at. Yeah,
That's
I'll have
where
to.
you're at.
Yeah, I'll have to.
That's
Oh, maybe you're thinking of me.
yeah. That's
Okay.
that's I gotta figure that out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
I was wondering, there are some people making comments on here, like Gregory, like using inner voice on clients, and Steve talking about kids needing love and correction, and Amanda enjoys the grace and truth. I'm curious if anybody has any like comments or anything they want to say. Like, Gregory, how do you use inner voice client with clients, or what does that look like, or thoughts that you had on that?
Yeah, Greg's awesome, man. He's the quantum boss.
Oh yeah,
The first time I ever met him, man, he was wearing this like Darth Vader or Star Wars mask. And we were at a conference, and an incredible soul. I don't know if Greg is still on here or not.
yeah.
But yeah, Greg, how do you use inner voice with your clients if you're still on? Also, Steve Duckett, a brother of Christ of ours. He's a part of a church here locally in Laurel called New Rock Church.
Nice.
I believe he just celebrated 2 or 3 years clean out of addiction. Good soul, and he helps lead the men's group at New Rock Church here in Laurel. So kids need love and they need correction, like they do something wrong. They have to be corrected of it. That's what's going on with our children now. The parents and spending time not loving them, not showing any affection, or the other way, not correcting them. I know when I was growing up, my parents corrected me and showed me the love that I needed.
Yeah.
Aw, Amanda Evans said, I enjoyed the grace and truth talk. I do that. It really works and lets me build a strong relationship with my daughter.
Yeah. I
It's
love it. Okay.
amazing. Amanda's
Yeah.
in Pennsylvania, and then got David in the house. Hey, David from Florida.
David. And then Gregory did respond. He said, or the quantum boss said, inner voice is a lie detector for emotions. I love that. Yeah, I know when I talk about inner voice, it's kind of that whole idea of, what I talk about, neutralizing the harsh judge. And so, when what's coming inside of me is critical and feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough and all of that, then I connect again. I got to call Spencer, or I got to talk to somebody else and neutralize that harsh judge here. Like, oh, Mike, I hear your voice inside saying that you're not good enough. Here's what I see in you. Here's how I see you. And we start to then internalize that new, kinder, softer voice that's balanced with grace and truth. So I'm thinking that's kind of what Greg is talking about, that, we may be believing lies about ourselves, and we may be following our emotions, like, oh, I feel this way, so that's how I'm going to act and respond, versus really beginning to experience a more grace and truth infused
Yeah.
reality.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of the stuff, I know we're talking about like structure and programs and education and group counseling and group therapy and group sessions and one-on-one, and like do you implement spirituality in any of those things? And like what do you meditate? Do you do yoga? I would love to hear about that, bro.
Yeah, good question. So definitely, like for me, the when I talk about like attachment, separation, integration, adulthood, like this is how God wired us. And so there's like the reality of my relationship with God is present in all of that. Meaning, like with attachment, I'm connected to God. With separation, I find my identity in God. With reality and integration, it's I go to God with my like negative thoughts about myself, or with my grieving, I'm experiencing that comfort from God. And in adulthood, there's like that, I get my sense of authority and who I am, and my personal empowerment and my purpose is rooted in God. And so like that's in a way, it's all like infused. But then for me personally, yeah, like one of the biggest things, like even right now, I'm just like constantly meditating on truth, on scripture, on like what do I want to believe? Because I do believe there's an element of like what I believe shapes my reality, right? And so if I'm focused on lies or just feelings or whatever, then I live from that place. But I want to meditate on what is true, what is good, what is the reality that I want to be reflected in my outer world. So yeah, I do a lot of like, and partly, I love worship music. So like I listen to worship music that fills me with like truth and grounds me. And then sometimes I'll just listen to instrumental music and just like really take time to reflect on truth. Obviously like just,
okay, top 3 favorite Christian songs, bro.
oh man, top 3 favorite Christian songs. Well, geez.
First 3 that pop up.
Okay. Man, that's honestly hard. Okay, so the first thing that just popped up was Josiah Queen, because my kids like are into his stuff. There's one that's like, and this isn't maybe like a worship song per se, but you asked
Okay.
first thing that popped into my head.
Let's go.
Josiah Queen, my family was, like you mentioned, we were traveling a lot this fall and summer. He's got this song Garden in Manhattan. Like, I'm a garden in Manhattan. I'm a river where it's dry. I'm whatever. I'm all these things. And so when we're walking through downtown Manhattan and seeing like concrete, this song of like, I'm a garden in Manhattan just kept going through our minds, and we would like play it and listen to it. It's this idea that like God is our oasis. Like he is our strength, that, the river where it's dry. And then I am that too. Like, where I go, I bring life, I bring truth, I bring the kingdom. And so I'm that
I'm getting
garden
chills, dude.
and yeah. So anyway, that's where I love like that whole, those messages that just kind of ring in your head and say, that's the truth that I want to live by.
Do you want to try to sing one? Because I don't know Josiah Queen. I would love
it.
it.
Man, I do not want to try and sing one for you.
Are you sure?
Like,
I think
yes.
Greg wants to hear you.
I am positive. I do love to sing, but man, yeah. So look him up, Josiah Queen. Obviously, so I love, the first thing that comes to my mind too are artists. Phil Wickham and Brandon Lake are like really big ones in Christian worship music right now, and so I love stuff that they do. Praise, like Brandon Lake has every song. Yeah, there's just a lot of those. My kids love Forrest Frank. He had the top album in across all genres last year.
Forrest Frank, okay.
Forrest Frank, it's I almost sang it for you. Something about I'm gonna have a good day. We like that one. So yeah, good stuff. I love good music.
Okay, me too. I don't know why, but 'cause you're a good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. Do you know that one?
Yeah. That's awesome. I actually, going into this retreat last week, that song was on my mind, and I was like singing it and playing it, like going into it. Yeah. That's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you play any instruments, or have you ever?
I do. Yeah. I played the piano, guitar, acoustic guitar.
I totally took you for a piano guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
How
often do you play? Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. Anymore, I don't do it quite as often, ever since we like have started traveling and stuff. But I played in church like worship bands from the time that I was in high school until last year. Like maybe it was the year before, I forget when I stepped out of that. But so like, yeah, I've always been involved in church music.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Didn't even know that about you. Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah. It was fun for a while, a couple years ago, 2000, maybe 16 to 18 or 17 to 19, something like that. I was in a band called 390 East Worship that was like a conglomerate, or like a gathering of multiple worship leaders in our area, that we had some music that we put out, and like that was super. I just love being a part of worship music. That was super fun, like season of my life. And then I stopped that to go back to school. So
okay,
yeah,
that's amazing. 390 East.
Yeah, 390 East Worship was a
390 East.
group of leaders in our
I would
area.
love to check that out, man.
Yeah.
So David Richmond Tony, worship and songs build up your spirit. The church we go to here in Tampa is really upbeat. He was on the trip with me when I went down south for Hurricane Helene. I think I mentioned that to you that I went there. And he's a photographer, does some amazing work there. And just a incredibly nice guy. So David, glad you're here with us, brother. And
Awesome.
started doing some photography with them. That's nice.
That's cool. We spent some time in Tampa, and during all of our travels, we were there in November and loved it. It was beautiful. And I know that was right after they'd had the hurricanes and stuff go through. So I know people were rebuilding and stuff. The part where we were at hadn't really been hit too bad, but loved our time in Tampa.
Yeah, it's crazy. Some of the areas I saw were like demolished, and then some I saw that weren't affected at all. It's which was nuts. I guess the storm was so isolated there, but
yeah.
Mike, you're such a good guy, bro. You're so sweet. You're a good man. I'm honored to know you, bro. And usually I reach out to people first online. Usually I see someone I like their stuff. I'm like, wow, this guy's got it going on. I'll totally be like, hey man, how are you? I found you. You seem great. Let's connect. And you actually messaged me first, yeah?
Yeah, I connected. I messaged you, but then you called me like right away or something. I forget how that was. I'm like, oh, Spencer's calling me. Okay. So then we started, doing some calls together. So that was fun to go from like, hey, how are you, to like, let's just talk.
Yeah. I appreciate you doing that. I don't know whatever part of you wanted to reach out and say, hey, I'm glad that you did. You are a friend and a brother to me, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you. You too.
Yeah. And so we didn't even touch on your you traveling the country. What's that about?
Yeah. So like I said, I talked about working. We not only worked at that treatment center for 20 years, we lived there. And so we were like rooted, grounded, and we would take trips. Like my family and I, we've always enjoyed, ever since Emily and I have been married, getting down to Florida whenever we can. Truthfully, everybody that lives in Indiana just wants to get to Florida when it's cold. So we do that, spring break, things like that.
Okay.
So anyway, so when we were moving from our home last year, Emily and I decided, and the long story short is the program that we were running, we actually closed its doors, like that private residential treatment center. And so we were leaving that organization, having closed it. And so we needed to move because we lived on the campus. And so we were like, well, what do we do? Do we move to Fort Wayne where all of our family is? We thought, let's go live in Florida for like a year and just kind of take time to get away and kind of be there. And then that evolved to, well, what if we like traveled and saw the country? And like, then that evolved to, Emily found this map on Pinterest that was like, here's this map to like travel your way around the country in this one like continuous loop. And so we decided, well, we can break it up a little bit. Let's do the Northeast in the fall, and then we'll do some Southeast. And then this year now we'll do the West. So that's kind of the journey that we're on. So we're like, we homeschool and I work remotely. So we're like, let's see the world. Let's like travel and explore and realize the world is our classroom. Like we can learn from anywhere around us. And it's such a rich experience. Like I've always loved to travel and I've always wanted to do more of it. So that's kind of the idea, is like learn out there.
Yeah. And so right now you're back in Indiana?
We are. Yeah. So we've been in Indiana for the holidays. It was really important to my kids to be like around family, grandparents and cousins and everybody for the holidays.
Okay.
And so then we kind of stuck around, try to figure out what our next move was. We leave next week. We're flying to Portugal and we're going to be there for 3 weeks. We're connecting with this other like homeschool world school family, and we're going to stay at their like, they have kind of like a resort chalet, kind of Airbnb thing. So we're going to go.
Nothing fancy, a chalet. Okay. I don't know how to spell that. Like, okay.
Right. But yeah, so we'll just stay there at their place for 3 weeks and kind of learn how do they do life kind of in another country. And like they're Americans, but they've lived in and visited over 55 countries over the course of 20 years, raising their family of 7 kids.
And how'd you meet them?
Just like through podcast. They're
okay.
Yeah. So
They have a podcast that they do about them
yeah.
traveling.
About,
Okay.
it's called Extraordinary Family Life, and they just share their, their coaches. They help other families. They share about their experiences traveling, but also just like how to do life and family well. So yeah. So anyway, super excited. So we'll do that for 3 weeks in Portugal. Then we come back and have about a week or two at home, and then we head out to Colorado and make our way through the West.
Good old Colorado.
Yeah.
All right. And what's on the site tour there? Do you have
Yeah.
anything planned yet?
Yep. We're going to stay in Colorado Springs and see Pikes Peak. And then we're still like putting all the tour together, but obviously we'll see Green Canyon over there. We'll see the Four Corners. We're going to spend time in New Mexico and Arizona. We're hoping to stay in like near St. George, Utah, and see like Zion and Canyons National Park, Bryce, all of those, and hit all those some national parks while we're out there.
That's amazing. And so, like, do you have any advice for anybody out there that is like wanting to, like, they would love to just be able to do that with their family, but they're like, there's no way I would ever be able to do that, man. Like the kids they're here and they go to school here, and then like, oh my God, the money and like my job, like I got a 9 to 5. And do you have any advice there?
Yeah, totally. Here's the thing. 2 years ago, I would have said the same thing. Like I couldn't do that. Like I'm in this job 9 to 5 or whatever, but Emily and I started to explore and be like, what do we want life to look like? What do we want to do? And we felt the sense of like, there was more that we were kind of growing into and expanding. And so we just started to like really believe and visualize. And here's what's funny. 2 years ago, we did this visualization exercise that we had heard somebody do where we all grabbed our suitcases. We got in the van, we drove around the block and talked about where we were going. We're going to see Niagara Falls. We're going to go on a cruise. Like we were doing all these things, just like visualizing
with your kids,
with our kids, while also going through the reality of our situation was I've got a 9 to 5. We live in this place. We work in this place. We don't really have like the space for all of that. But anyway, we started to do that, and really like we started to kind of create this sense of like there's more, that we're expanding, like what do we want, and really kind of leaning into that. And pretty soon our reality kind of shifted into where now all of a sudden we're like, oh my word.
Oh my word.
Yeah. Oh my word. Through no choice of my own, like we ended up in this place where we're having to close this treatment center. We're we're moving from our place, and all of a sudden we're going, wow, like if we had not started to really like expand and say, okay, God, what's next for us? We would have said, oh man, can you believe this is happening to us? This is horrible. Like I'm losing my job in that context. But instead it was like, no, like this is for us. Like this is it. It's all like how we look at the situation and how we are viewing and looking at our reality. And so anyway, what I would say to somebody that's out there like that is, what do you want? Like start to explore and say, if you want the situation and the reality that you're in a 9 to 5, you're in your house, your kids are in all these sports, great. Like love your reality. But if it's not what you want, then recognize you're a choice maker and that you can decide, I want my life to be different. It may be hard and there may be sacrifices, but know that you're a choice maker. And what we started to do,
there's so much power in that right there, man. I want to pause you. Because there's so many of us that feel like there is no choice. It's go to work and there's no way out. I'm in it. I'm in the rat race, man. And like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh my gosh, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where you were just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And now you're about to go to Colorado. You're about to go to Portugal for a couple of weeks. You were just in Florida and you did that route.
Yeah. And I would say too, like, we're not just like independently wealthy. Like I'm working and, we're working through it, but we're finding ways to do it on kind of a frugal, lifestyle. So it's not like I'm just saying, oh, look at us, we're lucky, we're traveling because we're independently wealthy. Like that's not the case. And we try to be wise and, good stewards and stuff. But it's like, what do I really want? And there are limitations, but if I begin to explore and see and believe and vision and move toward what I want in my life. Recognize if I want my reality to be different, I've got to do something different, including starting to believe and see that it can be different.
Yeah. Before you can actually see it, you got to believe it, or you got to believe it before you see it. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. That's belief is everything. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it was, if I get there, I think it's, what's his name? Nicholas Hall, or, that said what the mind can believe and conceive, the mind can achieve. I just like that idea of like, if I really believe and can conceive of this reality, then I can go after it, I can achieve it. I think I got the name wrong, but
Okay. Joe Dispenza goes all into the power of thought. Do you know? Have you checked out any of his work at all?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just gonna change this up for a second because I didn't even ask you this, but do you like that? It's just not as much screen.
Oh yeah.
You see the black? It's all blacked out
Yeah.
up top and bottom.
Yeah.
Whereas that is
yeah.
more coverage.
Like horizontal. Yeah. That's good. I like it.
So you have your leadership training at Townsend Leadership coming up, yes? Or is that already started?
Yeah. So I'm in it. Like, yeah, we started last night, and it's like a 2-week class that they do. So yeah, the groups that I run will be yet tomorrow.
Okay.
So yeah, like while we fly out for Portugal next Tuesday. So I'm still like teaching classes and seeing clients and stuff while doing it, just kind of managing a different time zone.
That is boss status, brother. That's amazing. That's amazing, man.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's very exciting.
I love it.
Is there anything that that you wanna say to anybody out there? Is there anything you want to cover that maybe we didn't cover today?
Man, I feel like you did a good job of like moving us, and we covered so much. So I mean, like you had put up there my website. If people want to be in touch, go to MikeHaarerCoaching.com and just like or find my Facebook page or whatever, reach out in any way, and just even having conversation, or if you want to learn more about different coaching or classes or anything like that, I'd love to be in touch. But I think my main message for people is to really like own your life and what you want in life. Like, nobody's going to do it for you. So if you want strong, healthy relationships, go out and get them, like seek them. You can build that strong, secure attachment in your life, but it takes you're the adult in your life right now. So like, you go out and do it. And if you want better boundaries, get the help that you need. Get a coach, get support if you need it, but take ownership of your life and go after what you want it to look like.
Yes. And that webinar that you have coming up, is that a free webinar?
Oh,
or no?
Yes. Yeah. Tomorrow, we have a colleague and I are doing, it is on effective feedback and confrontation, specifically for leaders. But again, like I said, parenting is leadership. So like what we talked about before, we're both like coaching clients and working with leaders. And one of the things that we're seeing is people struggling with giving feedback, setting boundaries, confronting issues in their workplace. And so we decided, let's do a talk. So 1 hour free workshop on effective feedback and confrontation.
And what time is that tomorrow?
12 Eastern. And
12 Eastern. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to share the link, or if you already did. I think you shared the PDF, but people have to click on the link to register, and then I can send them the link for to get in the Zoom meeting.
Okay. If either you want to message me that and I'll post that, or if you want to post it yourself and tag me in it, however you want to do it. But yes, I will share that. And Mike, I so appreciate your time, man. You're a wealth of love, man, and knowledge, and just thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Spencer. This has been super fun, and I really appreciate you.
Yes, I would love for us to close out in prayer, and if you would like to do the honors, I would love for you to close us out in prayer, man, or I will.
Awesome. Yeah, I would love to. All right. God, I just thank you right now for this moment to just pause and just really honor just your love, as all that we've talked about in this talk is just that idea of grace and truth and being grounded in who we are, And we know that all comes from you. You are good. You are love. You are truth. You are all of these things that we need. And so, God, I thank you for the connection that you've created with Spencer. I thank you for everybody that's here listening and that's able to view this. And I just pray for blessing for each of them, that they would experience connection and closeness with you today and in new ways, that they would begin to see you revealing your grace and truth to them. I pray that you would open up their eyes, open up my eyes, Spencer's eyes, to see you revealing your goodness every day. You are a good father, like Spencer sang a moment ago. God, I pray for just your continued blessing on our work roles, our families, our lives. We just thank you that you're good, and we just bless you in Jesus' name. Amen.
In Jesus' name, amen, amen. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. All right.
I hope you and the wife and the kiddos have a great night tonight. I hope your little girl gets feeling better. And thanks again for your time. And anyone out there, thanks for tuning in, watching. Please be sure to follow Mike. Check out his coaching page, as well as some of his upcoming events. And you will be seeing more from both of us. We love you so much, and God bless you.
Awesome. Love you guys. See ya. Thanks, Spencer.